So apparently April is Read Biographies or Memoirs month, which I'm not specifically doing, but I am making videos on biographies and memoirs that I've read or that I'm meaning to read. I've done one specifically on biographies of scientists and one on memoirs of scientists that I have read. I said I was going to do one about books I was meaning to read. And so when I was pulling them, a lot of them were math books that I realized were actually more about the history of the idea than the person. So I only actually have 3 biographies, 2 of which are the same person, but also as I was pulling books, I realized I have more memoirs by scientists that I've been meaning to read. So I'm going to do 7 of those today, and I thought I would start with 2 of these biographies of the 3 that I have are on one person, Joseph Banks. So this one I have been meaning to read for a while, and this one Amazon recommended. It's a relatively new book, and it's a thicker book, also on Joseph Banks, who is, if you don't know, he was the British botanist who was heavily influential in cataloging and describing a lot of the plants of the Pacific and of Australia. And so he was influential in that area. And he was on these voyages of exploration of the British, and he was focused on cataloging the plants. And there was also an artist who diagrammed them. And there was a book that he got made, or a series of prints he got made, the Florilegium, which I have. They put out a select number of them as a book. Unfortunately, they haven't put out all of them, which I think would be cool. I think a while ago there was a book that had many of them, but it's really expensive. I don't know. Certainly, the original plates are expensive. And he apparently bankrupted or came close to bankrupting himself trying to get these plates made. And I don't think a full set was ever made, and the people who did the book, they did a full set of plates, but only selected ones in the book. But I have that book. I'm not showing it because this is about these accounts, and more likely to read this one because it's older. I want to at some point read them both, which is why I got this when Amazon recommended it to me, because I think it's an interesting story, and I'm curious to compare what these 2 books cover if I were to read both of them. And then this one I got because, so this is more of a biography of the influence of certain philosophers, and first on the list is Borges, who I have talked about really liking before, and then Kant is someone I've been meaning to read, and of course, y'all know Heisenberg, uncertainty principle, and I'm curious about the connection between these 3 people. I can sort of see the connection between Borges and Heisenberg potentially, but I still have not read Kant, so I'm curious, and my impression is this is sort of a intellectual biography of the 3 and the connections of these people in terms of, well, a number of things. So yeah, so those are the 3 biographies. And then the memoirs, so I've already talked about as one that I read, a couple of books, Alex by Irene Pepperberg, but I mentioned that I was meaning to read this one. Bernd Heinrich, around the same time, was working on Raven intelligence and was also influential in helping people realize birds were capable of what we consider like human, like not human level, but like similar to how other like primates think, and smarter than a lot of other animals we've thought of as smart, like certain social carnivores. And so honestly, Mind of the Raven is probably the most likely of these that I will read anytime soon, because I like books on birds, and I've been reading other things, but at some point I'm going to be like, I don't feel like reading anything challenging, and books on birds are usually not challenging, so I'll probably read this one then. So yeah. And so then this book, Island of the Colorblind by Oliver Sacks. So he is a neuroscientist who is best known for, I forget if it's a book or it's an article on a man who, it's titled The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat. And so he had trouble like identifying faces and objects and things. And this is about his adventures on the Pacific on an island where most of the people were colorblind. And I've read a few other books on sort of similar concepts from Tim Flannery. So I'm curious what he has to say, mostly about the culture that he encountered doing this research. And I happened to get this one actually because I'm collecting books on pragmatism, a lot of which are out of print, and there was a used bookseller who had several by a lesser-known pragmatist author who was hard to find at reasonable prices. And then I was looking through his books, his featured books, and this one showed up, and it was surprisingly cheap. Like, I was paying $10 each for these paperback books on pragmatism, and this one was, I think, like $7, maybe less. And so got this one, and this one's also fairly likely to read soon because I am interested in this topic of how other people live and other people think, and I think he's likely to cover that in this story. Plus, there's a question of what is it like in a community where most people are colorblind, and I've read stories about deaf communities, and I took a class on, it was an ASL class, but a lot of it was on deaf culture, so I know a bit about that, and I'm curious the impact of, is there really a social impact of having a community where most people are colorblind? And then the last 2. So this one I've talked about the meaning to read for a while, and this one I was on the fence about including because I'm not sure how much of a memoir it is versus, I have a lot of these books, like Nate Silver had another one that I was like, this could be a memoir, but I was flipping through it. It looks like it's mostly other people's stuff. This looks like there's enough about her research in here to count it, but if I might read it, I might be like, oh yeah, this is not a memoir and it would not meet my standards for the other ones. But I've been meaning to read it for a while. I reference the ideas in it a lot, or I reference related ideas that I then learned about Dweck, and I sort of used her terminology. So it's one of those books I feel like I know what's in it. And so until I really feel like I need to improve my knowledge of fixed versus fluid or fixed versus growth mindsets, I am not urgently likely to read it unless I hear something very surprising about what's in this book, and then I'm likely to go, oh, I really need to read this now. So this one I'll almost certainly read at some point, I just don't know when. And then finally, and this one's also one I'm likely to read early, this one just came up when I was curious. I was like, has anyone done like a natural history of Madagascar in the way that Tim Flannery did of North America, Europe, and Australasia, so Australia, New Guinea, New Zealand, and New Caledonia? And this book is not that, but it came up when I was looking, and you can see it's not in great condition. I ordered it. I think it was described as very good, but I mean, the jacket's not in great condition. The book itself is in good condition, and I read the introduction, and it is basically a collection of his stories doing field research in Madagascar, which is a really ecologically interesting place. It's also a really culturally interesting place, which David Graeber has referenced in some of his works that I've read, and he's written books on the topic that I have, but I have not read. Anyway, so these are the 3 biographies and 4 memoirs that I am meaning to read by people I would consider research scientists that I'm aware of. I might also have other books that meet this criteria, but I'm not aware of it until I read them. And as I said, I had other books that I thought were like biographies of mathematicians, and I realized not really. They're more explanations of the concept, and the life of the mathematician takes up like 1 chapter, at least looking at the title of contents. So I might actually do a book on these math books that I have that I've been meaning to read, which would have been great to do on March 14th, Pi Day, but I didn't think of it then, and I don't want to wait another year, so I'll see if there's another mathematical day that would fit, and otherwise I will just do it whenever I feel like it. So anyways, thanks for watching. I'm Magpie. This is Leela, and we'll see y'all in the next one.